All right, guys. So we're actually really approaching the end here. In this one, we're going to be doing two things. We're going to fix the bug that was in the previous part, where basically sometimes when we press quit, the game would just freeze. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go on to actually making it so that way when we show a grid of levels, so I'll just Sokoban play. Right now, this doesn't handle the case where say we had 100 levels. Like, how are you going to actually be able to scroll? We don't actually have any way to handle that, so we're going to handle that. So first, let's start with the bug fix. So what's happening here is basically our clear function isn't good enough, and we're just going to have to fix it. Pretty simple. So the reason why we have a problem is basically when we do this like return object right here, what we actually need to do before we return after we're done returning the object is we need to fix it so that way the object itself, so let me do this. This is right. Actually, let's do it right here. Now that we have like the next thing that we're going to go to, what we need to do is we need to do object previous is equal to null pointer and object next is equal to null pointer. Otherwise, what happens is when we're reusing those objects, we basically have this problem where the game is, or not the game, but this node here has values that aren't null pointers, and things get all messed up, and we end up in an infinite loop. So that was the bug. And the one other thing I want to do before we keep going is in game C++, right? We have right here, we're clearing the commands, but we also, I guess I already did it, commands.clear. I thought I didn't have this. My bad. So commands.clear is called, so we're good there. So let's go back to our pooled linked list. So this is now working just to test, always test, or so I'm told. So Sokoban, right, we'll play, we're gonna beat a level, and then the bug was right here, but now you can see we can quit. We're gonna beat this level, quit, beat this level, quit, play, quit, go here. And you can see everything is working now. Even when we go to this crazy one, we can quit and everything is okay. But one thing I want to do, since we're thinking about this, is I want to be a little bit more explicit. So whenever we get an object, I want to say, well, do we need to do this? Yeah, I want to be explicit here and say new node. Yeah. So next equals null pointer, new node, previous equals null pointer. And I just want this very explicit in here so that we don't have any potential confusion points or failures that I'm not really thinking about. When we remove the front, we do it. So this is fine. I think all the rest are fine too. And you can see we're setting it here. So that looks good to me. Let's do one more quick test. We'll just make it. And then Sokoban, do this, do this, do this. One more, quit this. We're not going to beat this, but we'll go here, in here, quit, quit, and everything's still working. All right, cool. So now that we have our bug fixed, and it was all just because we had basically an infinite loop when we were trying to clear, and that's because we weren't setting these to null pointers, and that was causing an issue when we were checking for this. So that is fixed, and that means we can go on to the next thing, which is the grid view. So our level progression is where we have our grid view, and we only actually need to change it over here. So what we need to add in our level progression, we have this right here. I'm going to add std : size t column or row. Start row is equal to 0. So if they want to change it at some point, they totally can. I kind of would rather it be like this, ordering wise, because these are pointers. This is basically pointer in its own little way. And then we have our start row to just be a little bit better. Okay, so start row, when we look at Sokoban, right? This is our start row. So when it's at 0, we have this. But let's go into, let's write a quick little script. So we'll do touch temp.py. So we get to do some Python, right? Do I really want to? I don't really want to. But we will. Okay. So for I in range, 4 to 100, right? We're going to just print I. So it's like this, where we can do like I, and then we do .txt, right? So if I do it like this, temp.py, Python 3, sorry, you can see this is working, but what we're losing is this O at the beginning. So Python print preceding, print number with 3 numbers, zeros at start, something like that. I'm sure we'll find it. Leading zeros looks good to me. And then we can do like O2D, I guess. And then it's like this, O2D, I think that was. We'll see if that works. We'll reduce it so it's just 10. That didn't work. And I guess we can just do it. There it is. Oh, it's so we do this format, and then we pass in I. We can see what it does if it works. Still does not work. So we did have it basically right when we did it like this. But the problem is this point, I think. Let's see. Nope. 3 temp.py, and now it's working properly. So now when we go to 100, right, we're just making 100 files. So we're gonna do F, we can actually do it a little bit cleaner. F open, now we do this, W as F, and it's saying F dot write, and I'm just gonna be a little lazy, take this, right, and I'm gonna do this, F dot write this, then we do, oops, this, come on, A, boom, boom. So now we just have a bunch of levels, right? Just a bunch of random levels. So now if I do Python 3 temp.py, you can see I messed up, and I'm gonna remove, oops. So I'm just gonna remove all these real quick. Delete, and it's really going to, if we were doing like good Python, right, we would level, or like things that we would do like sys.path.join or whatever it is. But we don't really care about that, but you can see we have one more problem that I should have caught, which is we need to do a new line. So we do this, we don't need that one. So now let's try again. And now we have a bunch of levels that we can use. So we can remove temp.py because we're not going to use it anymore. Now, if we run Sokoban, you can see we have that error where we just have a bunch of things that we can't see. And we want to be able to see them all. So let's fix that. So we're going to make it so you can only see so many levels at a time, right? And we actually, now that I think about it, we need case up, Okay, so we need to think about, okay, so at some point we need to think about actually, there's up and down, right? And there's left and right. And certain times we need to actually change what we're seeing in terms of incrementing or decrementing this start row. Because the start row, maybe it should be like level render. I think render start row is the right way to say that. Anywho, so right now, if we just implement the behavior, we can come back to it in a little, into the actual behavior of how we're going to use arrow keys, down keys, etc. to do it. So we will do, so let's think. So the start index, std size ti is equal to, we're going to get rid of this, right? It's going to equal to, do I have the levels? Yeah, levels per row times start row, render start row. And then what we're going to do, the const std : size t is equal to std : min. And this is going to be, I want this, that should change, int render levels row, render rows, just render rows. We'll render 5 rows, why not, right? So we have our std min, this, and it's levels per row times render rows or levels dot size. And now we do this, and levels to render. I should make this a little bit bigger, sorry. I always forget that. So let's do this, this. That's a little bit more readable. We'll come back to the exact problem for this in just a second, where this is of type int. So we'll just do a static cast int just to make that easy. And then this will be the levels to render, and we need to fix that because that is gross looking. So now if I do one other thing, just so we can test, let's change this to 1. So we shouldn't see the levels we've beaten. And we can totally see the levels we've beaten. Did I make it? No, I did not. So now if I do it, you can see our render rows is working, like we only see 4, but I would like to change that to 5, so we have like 25 visible at all times. So let's fix that to render rows should be 6. So now if we make it and run it, we'll get a little bit better. So that's better. You can see that looks a lot better. And you can also see once we go down 1, everything's fine. And you can also see if I go up 1, level unlocked, level beaten, and we can see that, but we can't actually see what's happening. So now we actually have to figure out how are we going to recognize, 1, this kind of thing, but 2, when we should go up and when we should go down. So let's do that. The first thing to do is we're going to change this back to 0, close this because we're not going to use it. We don't need temp.py, and we don't need Sokoban, so we can close all those. And we can be a little bit cheeky here. Start row. Yeah, okay. Start row is equal to std : max. And am I using a size t here? We are not going to use a size t. Fair warning. By the end of this, in fact, in just a second, we're not going to use a size -1, and we're not using a size t because, right, we want frankly, we want to be able to -1 and not worry about it overflowing or anything like that. So we do render start row there. We can do this one. And in this one, we have to figure this out in just a second because there's gonna be a max. I'm gonna put a to do here. Oh, I can actually figure it out. So this is levels dot size, right? Divide by levels per row, because this is telling me how many rows there are. So we're going to do this, this, and then what we'll do is we'll fix this to be an int, cast, not capital, int, boom, 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 pretty clean-ish. Now, if we go to the bottom here, we can fix this. This is fine. I don't know why we're dealing with, we can just get rid of, this can just be an int. Okay, so let's see what we're dealing with, see if everything worked. And / Sokoban play, and that's working. You can see that this isn't working in terms of we're not rendering more below, but this selection is at least working. So let's figure out what's wrong with that next. And so we have I less than levels to render. Okay, so let's see it one more time. So this is totally fine. We render 6, which we don't really want. But that's fine. We can come back to that. The bigger mystery is why we're only rendering these. So levels to render is either, okay, so I get this. So levels.size isn't totally what we want it to be. Well, actually, is it levels per row? It's I plus. Yeah, that makes sense. So that fixes that, and you can see once we get here, we still have an issue, right? Where like if we get too far, it will still let me keep going past that point. And that's because we don't have a max. So we can fix the max real quick. No. So this is fine. It's over here. Right, where basically what's happening is we're letting it get all the way to the very bottom, I believe. And we want to stop it a couple rows before. So let's see. All right, little interruption from the doggy, no big deal. And we're gonna get back to it. So what we're trying to do is figure out why the render rows isn't totally right. And it's gonna be because of these right here. And it's just about figuring out the exact thing. We still have to do these two cases, by the way. And at a certain point, I'm pretty sure we're actually just gonna, part of me is of the belief that we can just do the calculation all at once and remove these individual case logics, because once we implement these cases right here, I think everything else is just gonna figure itself out in a sense. Because we can figure, yeah, so I wanna actually just, I'm gonna take this, put this here, I'm gonna put it there, I'm gonna take all of it, delete it, and then I'm gonna do this, and then at the bottom here, I have these case stuff, where I want to basically get to the bottom of this. So I can do it here. And I'm just going to implement it here. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what render start row equals. That's what this line of code is going to be about. Maybe not line of code, but code. And so the way we're going to figure it out, right, is we have our render start row, and we have levels per row. So what we can do is we can just do levels per row. We're going to cast it to a float. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call it std floor. And what this is going to do is it's going to basically set it to, if it's like, if this is the thing and it's right here, it's going to send it all the way back to the left with the floor. If we did seal, it would send it over. So that's levels per row. And this doesn't totally solve everything, but we're going to go one at a time here. So, because we still need to solve the case where it gets to the very bottom. So we need to set like a max, if you will. Play, and we can go down. No, we cannot go down. Let me see if I press down enough, it will work. No, it does not. So we're all on the same page. Let's do a debug. We're going to format this. And we're in LP, and we'll do this. Render row, start row equals, we do this, render start row, and then we need to give it a CStir, then we do that. So now we're here, now we make it, we'll do Sokoban, play, we'll go down a couple times, cool, and now let's look at our log.txt, we're over here, and you can see it's never changing, which is okay. But that to me, basically that means to me, we're not, oh, I get it. We're not using render start row. Sorry. We're using apps state selected index. Let's make it again and see what works, if it does work. So now it works. It may be a little bit better behavior, by the way, if like we let it get to here and then we started going down. But we can, and if I go to like 20, you can see it just works. So that's kind of cool. But now once we get here, we can see we have that max working. But what we don't have is that behavior where it kind of stops it. So let's figure out first the stopping behavior, where we only let it be so much. So render start row is equal to max render start row. It's going to be min, by the way, sorry. And the max is going to be, so it's going to be levels dot size divide by levels per row. And then what we're going to do, like this, -3, like this. And let's take a look at that in just a second. We have a not matching kind of thing where this is int like that, make. So we'll go down a bunch, and you can see it will stop at 3. Really though, we should stop at, where's our column, or this thing, it's render rows -1. Yeah, so let's make that and check if that's working. And if so, we can go on to the last part. And you can see the one problem we're running into is we're one short, I guess. So it really should be this. Is it +1? I think it's +1. Oops. Make, I think +1 is what we want. We go all the way down. And I realize like technically we maybe don't want the -1 because it adds, yeah, we just want this. Okay, so we do that, we play, now we're here, we get all the way to the bottom and you can see everything is working as intended. And now what we really want to do is this is the behavior we want, right? So right here is totally fine, but we don't actually want to go down one until we get to 27 and then we go down one. So that's the last thing to figure out, because then once we're here, right, we want to be able to kind of see stuff. So let's figure that out real quick, and that'll be the end of the video. So this is our render start row, and we have like a window, right? Const int window, levels per window, we'll say, window, and that's going to be levels per row times render rows. So there's that. And basically what we want to say, so I keep it here, is if we get to 30, we should increment. So how do I do that? If we're at 0, right, we're not going to do anything until we get to 30. So we're going to change this, I believe, to basically, and then we're also going to have to handle this subtraction. Okay. Can we make it this would be surprising if this works, because I don't think it will, but we'll see. Sokoban, I think it'll work for this part, but the question is, does it work for this part? And you see this is where it doesn't work, where I go up one and we're just doing like a kind of window view now. And it only works for this one. The second we go down more, it doesn't work. But this is the basic behavior we're looking for until we get to here. And then we're looking for more things. So what we could do interestingly, would that work? That'd be kind of silly. We could just do like a windowed view. And then we're in 30, 60. That's I kind of like that. And then we're in here. I actually really like that. I thought we were going to do scrolling, in all honesty, but there's something about this that I really like. Not because I think it's as good as scrolling, but because it feels kind of retro in a sense. And there's something kind of satisfying about like the whole thing changing. Yeah, we still have like this extra screen right here where it's not like a perfect window and it's going to show extra details, but it shows the 90 details. I want to see if I actually need to keep that anymore, because that may actually fix the other one, the like the third window that we don't really want. So we do Sokoban, I do play, play there, and now we're at the last one, and that actually fixes the one problem that I didn't like, where it was like showing like extra windows. But this looks nice. And it has the added benefit of working, which is always big. So we have that, and I actually kind of like that. So let me do this. I'm going to put this all the way down here, and I'm just going to put this right here. We don't need to remake it because we're here. If I do this, oops, I didn't save it, I don't think. Oh no, I changed it to 002 there. Let me clear /Sokoban play. And you can see, let's see what happens when we start to wrap. Level unlocked. It looks pretty cool. I actually really like that. So yeah, that's actually going to be the end of the video. We actually got to a little bit faster than I thought. So in the next one, basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the way we're reading files. Specifically, let me get rid of this. This right here, we're going to get rid of. This whole thing is going to go away. We're going to make it part of the Sokoban class or struct. And it's basically going to be somewhere around here. Init from level, we're actually not going to pass this. We're going to pass the file name, and it's going to do the reading itself. And then it's going to be increment or building the Sokoban level as we go while we're reading the file. So we won't need the strings. We'll read byte by byte. We'll be checking to make sure everything is the right size, or more correctly, is not too large in terms of our constants, which are 50 by 50. So that's the next video. If that doesn't take too long, we'll get on to compiler flags. And then after compiler flags, there will be one last video, which will be the conclusion of the game. In terms of, I remember I said in one of the videos, I think we'll have about 2,000 lines. I was wrong. I think we'll end up around 1,400 at the most, but about 1,300 lines to make a fairly good, I think, version of Sokoban with end curses. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.